guys, today I am going to be doing something about creepypastas. I'm going to be reading some fairly new, fairly old sort of creepypastas, and I'm also looking for myself from here. From this angle is really weird. So hey of me. So now I have two me and one on my mirror there. So I guess there's four of us in this room. Great. And we're going to be a long day if I'm going to keep doing this. So I'm using the thing which is looking at me right now, and I can see myself in it because I was going to do a reaction thing so the camera's still on it. Is where I'm going to read the creepypastas. So let's start off with Laughing Jack. Okay, I am on the creepypasta website. Just had something to do then, I was like, what's that? There's someone coming in my room. And now I'm going to be reading Laughing Jack. I'm reacting to it because I've already got a really creepy, eerie feeling already before we even start reading. Great, so I'm just going to put you... trying to find a good camera angle. Right, that you see my thing which I'm reading on now. So I think that's a perfect angle, so let's do this. It was a nice summer day. My 5-year-old son James was playing outside in the backyard of our suburban home. James has always been a quiet boy. He plays by himself mostly. He never had many friends, but he always had a wild imagination. I was in the kitchen feeding our dog Fido when I heard what sounded like James talking to someone in the backyard. I'm not sure who it was he could be talking to. Could he have finally made a friend? Being a single mum, it's hard for me to always keep an eye on my son, so I decided to go outside and check on him. When I went to the backyard, I was a bit confused because James was the only person back there. Was he talking to himself? I could have sworn I heard another voice. James, it is time to come inside, I called out. He came inside and sat down at the kitchen table. It was about lunchtime, so I decided to make him a turkey sandwich. James, who were you talking to out there? I asked James. James looked up for a moment. I was playing with my new friend, he said, smiling. I poured him some milk and continued to pry as any good mother would. Does your friend have a name? Why did you ask him to have lunch with us? I asked. James stared at me for a moment before replying. His name is Laughing Jack. I was a bit taken by what he had said. Oh, that's a strange name. What's your friend look like? I asked. He's a clown. No, I was a bit confused. He's a clown. He has long hair and a big swollen cone nose. He's got long arms and baggy pants with striped socks, and he always smiles. I realized my son was talking about an imaginary friend. I suppose it's normal for kids his age to have imaginary friends, especially when he has no real kids to play with. It's probably just a phase. The rest of the day went as per usual, and it was starting to get late. I put James to bed. I tucked him in. I gave him a kiss, made sure on his nightlight. That part didn't make sense before I closed the door. I was pretty tired. I was pretty tired myself, so I decided to go to bed. Not long after, I had an awful nightmare. It was dark. I was in some kind of rundown amusement park. I was scared, running through the endless field and empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals all hung from nooses in the game huts, and the grins stitched on their faces. I felt like the whole park was looking at me. even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly I began to hear music play. The sounds of Pop Goes the Weasel being played on a squeeze box echoed through the park. It was hypnotizing. I followed the black. The only light came from a single spotlight shining on the center of a big top. As I followed its tune, the circus tent almost in trance, unable to stop my legs from moving. It was pitch black, and only light came from the single spotlight shining on the center of a big top. I walked towards the light. The music slowed down. I found myself singing along and unable to stop. All around the bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey chased it in the fun. The music stopped right before its climax, and suddenly a light shot on. The intensity of the light was practically blinding. All I could see was a small dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Then another one appeared, and another, and another. There was dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. I couldn't move. My legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as haunting figures drew near. As they got closer, I could see they were children. As I looked at each other, I noticed they were horribly disfigured, and cuts all over their body. Oh gosh. Others were severely burned and were missing limbs. Oh gosh, even eyes. The children enveloped me, crawling at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing inside me. As the children tore me apart and I faded away, I could hear was the laughing, horrible laughter, evil laughter. I woke up the next morning in cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths. Oh, this goes on forever. I've already gone halfway through. I know I'm going to finish this. This is going to be in part 2, I guess. After taking a few deep breaths, I looked over and saw that a few of James' action figures were positioned facing me on top of my knights, and oh gosh. I sighed. James had probably woken up early and put these here. I gathered up the toys and made my way to James' room. However, when I opened the door, James was sound asleep. I shrugged and placed the toys back into his toy box and headed out of the living room. A little while later, James woke up and I had his breakfast. He was quiet and seemed a bit groggy. Perhaps he didn't sleep well either. I decided to ask him about the toys. James, honey, did you put the toys in Mommy's room this morning? His eyes shot up at me for a moment and quickly glanced back down at his cereal. Laughing Jack did it. I rolled my eyes and responded, well, you tell Laughing Jack to keep those toys in your room. James nodded and finished up his breakfast and decided to go play in the backyard. I went to relax in the living room and I must have dozed off because I woke up a couple hours later. Blank out that word. I need to check on James. I was a bit worried. It had been over 2 hours and I haven't checked on him. Him. I stepped out into the backyard, but James wasn't there anymore. I was getting nervous, so I called out him. James, where are you? Just then I heard a giggle come from the front yard. I rushed through the gates to find out of the house. James was sitting on the sidewalk. I breathed and a sigh of relief walking to him. James, how many times have I told you to stay in the back? Yeah. James, what are you eating? James looked up and reached into his pockets and pulled out a handful of hard candies in all colors. This made me very nervous. James, who gave you that candy? James just stared at me, not speaking. James, please tell Mommy where you got that candy. James hung his head and said, "Laughing Jack gave it to me." My heart sunk. I kneeled down to look at him in the eye. "James, I have had enough of this damn Laughing Jack thing. He is not real. Now, this is a very serious situation, and I need to know who gave you this candy." I could see my son's eyes tear up. "But Mama, Laughing Jack give me the candy." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "James has never lied to me, but what he's telling is impossible. I make him spit out the candy, and I have thrown the rest away. James appears to be fine. Maybe I'm just overreacting after all. He could have gotten it from Tom and Linda next door, or Mr. Walker down the street. Either way, I am going to have to keep a close eye on James that night." I put James to bed as usual and decided to go to bed early myself. Like, probably a few 10 paragraphs left. So I have 4 minutes left to do this. Okay. Suddenly I was woken up by a loud bang coming from the kitchen. I sprung out of bed and hurried downstairs. When I got to the kitchen, I was horrified. Everything on the counters had been thrown on the floor, and our dog Fido hung dead from the light fixture. Oh God, never would it happen again. That just makes me more sick. His stomach was cut open and stuffed with candy, the same type that James was eating earlier the day. My shock was quickly broke. A sharp scream coming from James' room, followed by loud crash. I quickly grabbed a knife from the drawer and moved upstairs with a speed that only a mother whose child is in danger could have. I burst through the door and flicked on the lights. Everything in the room was knocked over. I tossed on the floor. My poor son in his bed, crying and shaking with fear. A pool of urine. Where did I? Stained the sheets. I tied up and ran out of the house. I went next door to Tom and Linda's house. Luckily, they were still awake. They let me use their phone, and I called the police. I didn't take them long to arrive, and I explained what happened. They looked at me if I was crazy. They searched the house, but all they could find was a dead dog and 2 trashed rooms. The officer told me that someone had probably gotten into their house and done this right before making a quick escape. When they heard me coming up the stairs, I knew it wasn't true. All of the doors were locked and none of the windows were open. Whatever was in my house didn't come from outside. The next day, James stayed inside. I didn't want him to leave my sight. I went into the garage and found his old baby monitor and set it up in his room. If anything comes into the room tonight, I was going to be able to hear it. When I went to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife from the drawer and put it on my nightside, imaginary friend or not, I am not letting anything hurt my little boy. Oh gosh. Soon enough, night came. I put James to bed. He was afraid, but I promised him that I wasn't going to let anything happen to him. I tucked him in, gave him a kiss, and turned on the night light. Before closing the door, I whispered to him, "Good night, James. I love you." So I'm going to leave it there, and part 2 is coming right probably a few minutes after this is uploaded. So I just want to say that part 2 is coming soon, and this, Barry's on my thing. I am going to be charging this thing, and I'm going to thank you for watching, and please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. So thank you and goodbye.